Tonight, you, the public, will get a chance to understand a little more about the candidates that are running for Terrebonne Parish President. As the owner of HTV, I've had the chance to interview and work alongside all of the parish presidents dating back to President Bubby Lyons in 1985. All of the parish presidents had their own style. All had many positive things they accomplished for our parish, and all had some not-so-good moments while they were in office. But I think we all appreciate the good things each did. However, I am more interested tonight in what the candidates will do when the cards are stacked against them. What will happen when they are face-to-face with the next Hurricane Ida? God forbid, please. We must at the same time thank each of the candidates for putting their name up to run for such a public office. In today's world, when you place your name up for office, you subject yourself to a public pounding. If you have brown hair, someone will try to convince the social media world that you are a blonde. If you are 6 feet tall, by the end of the day, you'll be 4 foot tall. If you have a colorful past, it will be more colorful at the end of the day. Trust me. You get the point. It's hard to put your name up when you know that right around the corner, the keyboard warriors will find a way or a rumor to try and dismantle you. That is why tonight's setting will not be about dismantling the other person. As the moderator, I am more interested in hearing what each person will do to better our parish community. Sure, each person tonight may differ in their opinion of how they would run the parish. That is surely fair game. What will not be allowed tonight are personal attacks that have nothing to do with the office of parish president. I will allow issue-oriented disagreements tonight, but I will not allow personal attacks. Any out-of-line dialogue tonight will be cut off quickly. And once again, the citizens will be more impressed by how impressive you are about the issues. I nor the public as a whole leave with a good impression when personal attacks are all you have in your playbook. And it will be my discretion to challenge anyone who makes a parish claim about the policy of any candidate or any parish president that needs some backing. Since the past living parish presidents are not here to defend themselves, I will be compelled to make any candidate back up a claim that targets any past parish president's policy or legacy. Now, the rules are quite simple in this setting. We have accumulated many questions from high-ranking officials and public-minded citizens. We have also received emails from the general public. All the questions have been placed in a hopper, and I have someone up here to pull the questions for tonight's event. The question will be handed to me, and I will read the question to the candidate who is up for the question. Each candidate will have a different question on every round. We will have about 40 questions in this 2-hour event, so we will work in as many questions to a full panel that we can fit in. What makes this more from a forum to a debate at times is that we will allow each candidate 2 chances or mulligans to challenge the answer of another candidate. Originally we said 1, but we decided on 2 because, we wanted more chances for someone to challenge on a topic that they felt passionate about. The follow-up or mulligan reply will be 90 seconds as well. Once the candidate uses up their 2 mulligans, they will not be able to rebut any other questions. So candidates, use your mulligans wisely. When you want to use a mulligan, simply raise your hand and I will recognize you. We will then have the 1 microphone passed to you so that your reply is not interrupted. Listen carefully now. Each person who originally answered the question will have a final chance to answer the person who rebutted them. It's just like court. We've got to have a little fun along the way, so I will allow spirited debate as long as it pertains once again to the issue. The candidates have been seated in alphabetical order. From left to right, they are Jason Bergeron, Connie Berg, Sherry Champagne, Roy Chauvin, Krista Duplantis Prather, Darren Guidry, Mike LaRussa, and Aranda Smith. Opening statements of 90 seconds will be in alphabetical order from left to right, and closing statements will be in reverse alphabetical order from right to left. Keith Whiteside, one of our hosts here on Bayou Time, is our official timekeeper, and once he says time is up, then time is up. I, as the moderator, will also serve as the referee. If you keep it to the topic and the issue, no problem. If you get personal, I will jump in and try to get you back on track. The clock will keep running, so if you go off track, the time it takes to get you back on track will be lost in your total 90 seconds. With that said, I'm so proud to come with you and join all of these candidates tonight and let them state what their platform will be for parish president from the Lorraine Falls studio in Houma, Louisiana. Let's now show the people of Terrebonne Parish why each candidate chose to run for the office of Terrebonne Parish President. All right, and we are back and ready to go. Keith Whiteside, good to see you.
Thank you, Martin. It's
You
good to
ready?
be here on this
You
side
ready
of the
to
desk.
rock and
I
roll
am.
tonight?
I'm ready to be the timekeeper
And
and the chooser of the first and last questions.
yeah, and that'll come in a short bit, but
Yeah.
we're going to go right to opening statements and alphabetical order. We'll start with Mr. Jason Bergeron. Jason?
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Keith. I want to thank everybody else for being here also. My name is Jason Bergeron. I'm a small business owner, political outsider, and I'm running for change. I'm a lifelong resident of Terrebonne Parish. I'm a community leader, and my vision for Terrebonne Parish is a parish where residents are safe, communities are vibrant, infrastructure is sound, government is responsive, and our citizens have opportunities throughout the parish and throughout their life. As you can see with as many candidates that are running, you can tell that Terrebonne Parish is ready for change. And like my slogan says, I want to move Terrebonne forward, take us from where we are and prepare us for the next 10 years of growth and activity. I want to make it to where every person has an opportunity for success and where at the end of the day, we all can be a better parish and a stronger parish by doing the things that we do great, which is working hard, being resilient, and working together as a community. I had a calling to run, and I'm running because it's important to me that my daughter, who's a senior at LSU, she says there's nothing for her to come home to. My son's a junior in high school. He wants to move away. I'm running because it's immediately going to affect me, whether or not they stay or come home, and I feel like I provide the best opportunity to take Terrebonne Parish into the next decade. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bergeron. We'll go to Ms. Connie Berg.
Good afternoon. My name is Connie Fungi Berg, and I'm lifelong resident of Terrebonne Parish. I grew up on Locaia. I'm married to Lavis J. Berg Jr. Have 2 children who have moved away, and that's one reason why I want to run for parish president. I don't want anybody else to have their children move away. I'm the daughter of Bill and Norma Fungi. I was raised on Locaia. This is my first attempt at running for political office, but I have a heart and a desire to really bring Terrebonne Parish forward. I want to beautify this parish. I want to make it a place that people want to come to and enjoy our culture and our lifestyle. We really need people to come back to our coastline. So, and I love to make sure everything looks beautiful. I really want to enhance Terrebonne Parish's beauty to match our great personality down here. We're very welcoming people, but we have to get them to us first. So and we have to give them something to come to. So that's why I am running for parish president.
All right, thank you, Ms. Berg. Ms. Sherry Champagne?
Hi, I'm Sherry Champagne, or Champagne here in Houma, and I am running for parish president for much of what everyone else is, for change. And I see the parish in the condition that we now see it has become after Ida and many storms and things like that. But rebuilding and restoring our parish, to me, is extremely important. From the levees to the streets, I believe that if our streets are safer, our schools are secure, our education is priority, and crime is addressed, and the economy is addressed. All of these things matter to the parish, and that is exactly why I'm running, is to make that change happen, make our streets safer, make the economy what it once was, and make the homes and the home insurance and all of these things that our parish is dealing with on a regular basis. We have to change that. And in order to change that, we have to be willing to fight for that. And we have to be willing to put in the work, which I am, in fighting for the people of Terrebonne Parish. From the bayous to the city, we have to remember that everyone here collectively has been through a lot. However, we do see a lot of what's happening. It can be fixed. It can be repaired, and it can be restored. Whether it is from the crime to the streets, that is something that I am very important to me, and I plan on doing that very much every single day as your parish president. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Ms. Champagne. Mr. Roy Chauvin?
Okay, I have a big mouth, so maybe is the microphone too close? I'm not sure. But as I look down each side over here, I clearly overdressed. However, the reason why I'm running for parish president is because of a different situation. The people in the parish today have decided that they have conflicts with everything that they do. I don't usually, 90 seconds is a very difficult time to try to tell you all about me. I'm 73 years old. I got plenty of 90 seconds under my belt. So, and I never prepare a statement, but I think it's important to let you know exactly where I'm coming from. And I have never done this before, to be honest with you. And this is my opening statement. And what it's about is my whole life has been a crusade for fairness, honesty, and justice. I share the same frustrations and disgust with the voters, as the voters do with local, state, and federal elected officials. It is time for a voter revolution as our forefathers in 1776. It is time to elect a godlike officials rather than godless officials. Our country is morally bankrupt. To those who don't share my feelings, I really don't want your vote. Might sound strange, but that's it. To those who do share my beliefs, I say that the voter revolution on October 14th, 2023 is at hand.
Time.
All right, thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Darren.
Chauvin. Ms. Krista DePlanis said she was caught up in another appointment, so we are going to skip over her chair, and we're going to go to Mr. Darren Guidry. Darren?
First of all, thank you, Martin, and thank you, HTV, for providing this opportunity. I'm Darren Guidry. I'm a conservative, a lifelong Republican, and a candidate for Terrebonne Parish President. Terrebonne faces a pivotal time. We're recovering from a major hurricane. Our oil industry is under attack. Our insurance is through the roof, and our way of life is threatened. The next parish president will need the experience and leadership to create new ways to grow our economy, bring down insurance costs, and improve our community. My grandfather was a shrimper who worked very hard and eventually started his own boat company. My dad worked in the oil field. They taught me the value of hard work, and it's that value that I've used to become a good councilman, and also I will use to be a great parish president. In 1995, I started a local weekly newspaper, the Tri-Parish Times and the monthly Gumbo Entertainment Guide, while at the same time was a board member of the Chamber of Commerce, completed the Chamber of Commerce's Leadership Terrebonne program, and I also served as the Chamber's appointment to the Terrebonne Economic Development Authority. I helped create jobs and grow our economy, and I'll do the same as parish president. Over the next few hours, I hope to have a chance to share my vision, my dreams, and what I hope to do with Terrebonne Parish to make Terrebonne Parish thrive again. Thank you, and I look forward to working for you as your next parish president. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Next up is Mr. Michael Paul LaRussa.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you for watching at home and online. What a wonderful parish we live in. We're blessed to be from Terrebonne and to call it home. We have so much going for us, but we're at a critical juncture. Without the right leadership, we face uncertain times. I'm Michael Paul LaRussa. I've spent my whole life in this parish. I'm a father of two, small business owner, and a community leader. I care about this place, and I want my children and yours to grow up right here and raise families of their own. I want all our children and grandchildren to know they could find a good job here. I want them to be the first generation not to worry about whether their house gets flooded, their families are safe, or how they're going to pay for things like homeowners insurance. To do that, we need to tackle these issues right now. If you're going to be serious about investing in our future and theirs, it requires listening, planning, honesty, and execution. From our shrimpers to our shipyards, I will unite the parish and use my experience to invest more in this generation and the next. We will make it better than we found it. That's my pledge to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. LaRussa. Now we go to Ms. Aranda Smith.
Good evening. My name is Aranda Smith, and I'm running for one reason. I'm passionate about Terrebonne Parish. I've spent some time away from Terrebonne Parish, but regardless of where I was, Bayou water ran through my blood. I'm proud to be a citizen of Terrebonne Parish. I spent time in the United States Army. I also deployed. I'm also an Ivy League graduate. My degree program focuses on people and processes. I love to see people thrive. I want to see Terrebonne Parish thrive. I want us to see us more inclusive in what that looks like. We have a lot of great strengths here. We're in a unique community, and we have awesome strengths. Of course, as a parish president, we also will have some issues that we need to assess and look at in terms of our infrastructure, in terms of recreation, in terms of coastal restoration, and what that looks like. The work that we've done already has been great, and how we're going to continue to do that work. Drainage, we do have some issues that we need to look at. But most importantly, we have a lot of good strengths in Terrebonne Parish. As I move along in the campaign, I've met a lot of folks along the way, and I want to continue to hear your stories because your voices matter, and of course your vote matters as well. I'm looking forward to being the next Terrebonne Parish president. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Smith. Now we're going to pass the mic down as I'll get Mr. Keith Wysite to pull the first question. Each question will be different for every round, so it'll never get boring. First question will be to Mr. Jason Badron. Feel like I'm opening up a fortune cookie. All right. Would you be in favor of taxpayer monies being allocated to a new parish jail?
Thank you, Martin. So I do think it is important that we make sure when it comes to jailing prisoners that we offer opportunities for those to have a second chance. And so when you look at the system that we have in place now, we want to ensure that not only are those that are doing things they shouldn't do are serving the time they should, and we got to make sure we have the space for them to stay. I think as anything in this country, if there's a situation where the voters are interested in voting on a tax to provide a resource like a jail, I think we should give it to the voters, and we should let the voters decide where the money is spent, how the money is spent. I believe in bringing transparency to government and understanding where that money is spent, and not only that, to understand what projects are going on. And it should be information that should be readily available at your fingertips or by a phone call. So we got to make sure at the end of the day, those that are committing crimes are doing the time for the crimes they commit, and that we are making sure they serve every day they have earned. And in that situation from there, making sure we have the space for them. We cannot be letting people out because we don't have enough space. But again, at the end of the day, we have to make sure that the voters vote on it, and whatever they decide is what we do as a government. We need to serve our public, and we need to be servant leaders and quit being politicians.
All right, thank you, Mr. Badron. Would anybody like to have a rebuttal on that answer? Okay, if not, then I'll get Mr. Whiteside to pull the next question. All these questions come from high-ranking officials, and the public. All right, here we go. And this one is to Ms. Berg. What are your plans for the east side of Terrebonne Parish? There are some that feel that the east side is the stepchild. What will you do to make sure that the east side feels like the prized child?
Oh, that's great. I love that. I'm from the east side. I grew up in Locaia, so I know about the Bayous and I know about the east side. And I too am disgusted by what I see on the east side. I do have a vision of cleaning up the east side and making it more presentable. For one thing, I would love to see us have a new we have homeless people by the bridge. I would love to see us have a new homeless shelter there, but have it a nice building, not an old dilapidated building, but a beautiful building where they would have the resources to get off the street, have everything in one location where they can get the help they need to get back on their feet. I would love to see the old A&P shopping center demolished and open that up for small housing for elderly people or people on low incomes because they can't afford a $350,000 home. But there's nothing for them to buy in that price range. And that A&P shopping center is deplorable. So I would love to see the east side of Houma cleaned up. They have the infrastructure there now with the 4-lane of Grand Caillou Road. I never thought in my lifetime I would see Grand Caillou Road 4-lane all the way to Woodlawn Ranch Road. That's amazing, but it's been done. So they have the infrastructure there to move the people. The bus lines move through there. So that's a big concern for me.
Time.
All right, thank you. Any rebuttals on that particular question? Okay, so no rebuttals. Saving your rebuttals. I see what y'all doing. All right, so the next question that
Don't
Keith
make
pulled will be from Ms. Sherry Champagne. And let me bust it open. These staples are very hefty.
I'm about to sing.
All right. Ms. Champagne, what would your policy be as far as the collection of trash and debris after a major storm event in our parish? Is it good the way it is, or what would you do different?
That's a wonderful question. So thank you to whoever posed that question. So first and foremost, that is one of our biggest problems right after a storm, obviously. But I do believe that when we collaborate with others and we have not only the trash pickup and the debris pickup, but we have to make sure that we effectively hire those that are here to pick up that trash and to disperse it accordingly. And what we've seen recently is that when we have this trash pickup and we have all of the debris being moved here and there and everywhere, we're seeing a lot of out-of-town individuals who get multiple contracts to remove this debris. And that also leaves a lot of our local people out of the mix as well. And so they're not able to help. So I do believe that we need to address that and make it to where it's more of a mainstream. We're picking up the debris, we're picking up the garbage accordingly. And we have to do that on a much faster base. We obviously see what happened after Ida, and there was so much debris left over for months and months, and myself included. We had to deal with that. And so I think mainstreaming that and make it more effective, making sure even local people have those contracts to make sure our city is clean appropriately and in the appropriate amount of time, and making sure that it is done for the betterment of the parish, and the people in the parish are, I guess you would say, awarded those
Time.
contracts.
All right. Any rebuttals on Ms. Champagne's answer? Just raise your hand if you have a rebuttal. And if not, we will move to our next question. Thank you, Mr. Whiteside.
Yes,
This
sir.
one will be for Mr. Roy Chauvin. How involved are you with our Terrebonne Parish school system, and do you think there is an opportunity for the parish to work closer with the school system?
That's a good question. I just tried to do something with the school system. My daughter is a principal at a school, so I know quite a bit. I have quite a few family members who were teachers. My grandmother was a teacher and all. And the school system is part of Terrebonne Parish. I was told that the school system is segregated from the, not school system, but school jurisdiction and administration was segregated from the parish. Everything that goes on in this parish is part of the parish president's job to try to see that it's going right. And the school system itself is deplorable. If you want to know the truth, we have it's 19% dropout rate. And if you really look at it, it's probably 40%, maybe 50% because of social promotion and everything else. Things need to, when you took God out of the schools, you took God out of the children. We need to push that forward and to try to get a little better relationship with the people. The system has no discipline whatsoever, and it's just like a big babysitter up there. That's what they're doing, and it's very difficult. And they turn that loose in the workforce, and they're not educated. And it creates problems for the businesses and industry that comes into the parish when you don't have education. So it does need to be addressed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chauvin. Any rebuttals on this question? All right, see Ms. Champagne is holding her hand up, so we will give her first of two mulligans and let her respond. So Mr. Raw, if you could hand her the microphone. Ms. Sherry?
I'm not sure if you call this a rebuttal. I think this is kind of an add-on. Essentially, this is what I do in the parish, and to add on to what he just said, he's absolutely right. Our school system is in a deplorable state, and what we're seeing now is in the education system is we have inappropriate curriculum. We are now fighting this curriculum in legislations. That is what I do on a regular basis, is I fight for the children of Terrebonne Parish. And you would not believe that what we're seeing in our schools, the inappropriate curriculum that is being allowed in our classes, and it is hidden, and it's very much in our school system. And so when I'm in Baton Rouge fighting for our children here in Terrebonne Parish, it is very obvious that that's where we need to be. We have to fight it from legislation because we cannot address it here. I have been through the school board here, fighting this here. I have tried through all avenues to make a difference here, and it's been almost impossible. And so that $28 or $30 million that we allocate for our school system, we do, as parish president, we have an opportunity and an obligation to ensure that our education system is appropriate and it is effective for the children that we have. And we're releasing them into society uneducated and unable to provide the community with a responsive, educated individual who can do the job.
Time.
All right, any more rebuttals before we let Mr. Chauvin have the last word, since he started this answer? All right, no other rebuttals, so you get the final word.
Oh man, this is great because I don't really have to rebut anything. I'll just hire you as my administrator in education. But anyway, what she said, I'm glad she brought it up, and she's in the education system and all. I've had trouble with the whole system throughout my career, especially as a foster parent. I had a lot of problems with the school system in the inappropriate settings, which is IEP programs for autistic children, so to speak. I fought tooth and nail, and finally got an autistic setting established at H.L. Bourgeois because of a child that I had that was autistic, and they set up a special program. They fought me tooth and nail, and I refused to sign the IEP, and that's what caused trouble. And it's a whole system that's so screwed up that we got to do something. And even though they say they're hands off, we need to step in, and the parents need to step in. The parents use it as a crutch. There's no backing from the parents. There's no backing. The good kids have to suffer for the bad kids in the classroom. I've had some kids that weren't jewels either, and that was my one thing. You can be a terrible student, but be a quiet, good student. And I thank you for the comments.
All right, thank you, Mr. Raw. We appreciate that. We're going to go to Mr. Darren Guidry, and Keith has pulled the next question. Mr. Guidry, in your own words, give us the lines of defense that we have to have as a parish when it comes to a storm surge protection type of scenario.
Well, in a storm surge scenario, of course, you have to have multiple lines of defense. And that's how we do it in flood protection. Our first line of defense is our barrier islands. So we need to protect our barrier islands to make sure that they can knock down a storm surge. The second thing is our marshes. We have to have healthy marshes, and as you know, we don't have a whole lot of healthy marshes now in the east side of our parish. But then we also have to have our hurricane protection levees. Behind our hurricane protection levees, we have to have our interior drainage levees. So it has to go past the barrier islands, the marshes, over our hurricane levees, and then over our drainage levees. And then, of course, you have to fill up the reservoir so you have storage capacity. And you also then, the next level is your elevation. You have to elevate your homes. So, and of course, the third thing is, evacuation. So, there's multiple levels of defense, but it starts with our barrier islands and it ends with the elevation of our homes and everything in between. We can't ignore any part of that equation. And so what we try to do is, if a storm comes and overtakes a levee, you want to have enough of a reservoir so that way you can hold that water until. But we also need to get FEMA to recognize our levees and lower our flood insurance rates. That's a big challenge, and that's something I'll do as Terrebonne Parish President. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Guidry. Any rebuttals on that particular subject? All right, no hands are up, so we will now move to our next question, which will be for Mr. Michael Paul LaRussa. There has been much talk and concern lately about 5G and alleged problems that may come with this technology. What is your opinion about 5G, and should the parish research this more intensely?
Well, we have ordinances on the books, we have zoning laws on the books that allowed 5G as it is today. I know Ms. Champagne is big on the 5G situation. We've talked numerous times. I think the proper way of doing it is changing the zoning ordinances and the laws that are on the books today to protect our citizens if there is a health threat from these 5G towers. AT&T and the rest of the big tech companies, they have deep pockets. So we would have to probably get the Attorney General involved if we would go forward and handle stuff like that. However, the first line of defense is our zoning ordinances, and they have to come in front of council, and we make laws to protect the citizens that way.
All right, any rebuttals? Okay, Ms. Champagne would like to talk about this subject.
Tapped out.
All right.
I've used my two fellas and ladies out there, so here we go. As Michael said, yes, that is one of the things that I do here locally in Terrebonne Parish. And 5G towers and the 5G meters that we now have on our homes, what I do is I do the investigation for the 5G radiation that comes from those towers. And here in Houma, in Terrebonne Parish, our zoning department has no regulation or regulatory compliance for any of the safety compliance regulation for the 5G towers that we do have. And so I have been dealing with the zoning department currently, right now today, has not provided any of the safety compliance for the radiation coming off of these towers. I have personally, and with others and other organizations, tested these towers throughout Terrebonne Parish, and they are all beyond the safe levels for human consumption of radiation coming off of these towers. And so that is obviously one of the huge things that I feel like is one of the environmental impacts that we have right now. And regardless of we have to sue, let's just say AT&T or any of the telecom companies that are here in Terrebonne Parish, we have made an agreement with them via the council said that they met with AT&T, and if they had to, they may be sued if they did anything different. We have no safety ordinances, and that is one of the things, one of the reasons that I am running for Terrebonne Parish President is to change that and to make our communities safer. If you look around you, you will see these 5G towers, and you will know that they are absolutely unsafe.
Time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Champagne. And we have another rebuttal, Mr. Darren Guidry, on that subject.
Well, first of all, just to explain, 5G is basically the same thing that you have in your home when you have a router. It's putting out 5G. Now, what has been talked about is about zoning laws. Do understand, Terrebonne Parish does not regulate technology, 5G or anything. The only thing Terrebonne Parish does is that it zones a tower. And if it fits within the guidelines of the zoning, they can build a tower. Now, we could try to eliminate all towers, but if there is a tower there, we can't, as a government, local government, say what goes on that tower because that is the Federal Communications Commission. And that's why experience is so important, to know what powers you have. I mean, we could, as a local government, vote it down, prevent them from doing a tower. All that means is these companies with deep pockets will sue Terrebonne Parish, which means your taxpayer dollars is used to defend that lawsuit. And we're going to lose because Terrebonne Parish does not control 5G. Now, if 5G is indeed harmful, now understand, we get the same thing when we put our phones up to our head, but it may be harmful. I don't know. The scientists say it's not. But if it is harmful, we need to talk to our congressman to get the FCC to change that. It's not a local issue. Thanks.
All right, so any other new rebuttals? If not, Mr. LaRussa started this answer, and you get the final word on this answer.
Well, if I'm elected parish president, Sherry, you have my word. I will sit at the table and figure out any way possible to help and protect our citizens. That's a pledge I'll give to you.
All right, there we have it. So we will now get another question. And this next question is for Ms. Rhonda Smith. Tell us about your knowledge of how grass cutting is performed in our parish, and what would you recommend on grass cutting policies if elected?
So my knowledge in terms of grass cutting. So grass cutting, obviously, we have some areas that are owned by the parish, of course, that we're responsible for, and there's crews that should be maintaining those areas in terms of grass cutting and also roads as well. I think what's important is to, as a parish president, to make sure that we have the manpower to make sure that these things are kept up in terms of the cleanliness and beautification of Terrebonne Parish. So I think ideally to make sure we have enough staff to make sure those areas are kept clean and then cut properly and clear of debris. So that's my understanding of what takes place in terms of beautification, our roads and our bridges. And I think a lot of it's just going to go back to staffing and make sure we have adequate amount of folks for those departments. And I know that's one of the main concerns that we hear often about, our grass cutting and then our road repairs around Terrebonne Parish. But certainly we have to make sure what are those areas, and if those areas are responsibility of the parish.
Any rebuttals? I guess it was stated very accurately, maybe an add-on. I see Connie Berg wants to comment. And we'll let Connie have one of her mulligans. Okay, Connie.
I did not think I was going to have a mulligan, but I'm very familiar with the grass cutting in Terrebonne Parish. I am also known as the lady with the weed eater. I was out there weed eating ditches and bridge corners so people could see the highway when they pulled out. I took it upon myself to clean those ditches, and I took it upon myself to weed eat those roads. I think our grass cutting has to increase because of the type of climate we have here. We need to set up a better schedule for grass cutting. We also need to hold the state accountable. We only get, as a parish, y'all would not, the state only allows us 3 grass cuttings a year down here for the summer. Now, you and I both know that's ridiculous. We need to have that stepped up, but that's on a state level. The parish can't do anything about that. I mean, we can hold the state accountable, make no mistake about that, and which I plan to do. But as on the parish level, we have to, I would like, if they're cutting grass, I want to know where they're cutting grass. I want the public to know where they're cutting grass. So that way we know they're actually out there cutting grass, because you can drive all over Terrebonne Parish and you don't see anybody cutting grass. But lately it has picked up, I must say. They have been cutting grass. But that's one of my biggest passions for this parish, is to make sure all the grass is cut.
All right, thank you, Ms. Berg. Anybody else? Mr. LaRussa would like to use one of his mulligans?
almost every major road, and what Ms. Berg was cutting was mostly state roads most of the time. Yes, the state does only cut 3 times a year. I think our grass cutting department with Mr. Knockins does a knockout job. I think he keeps trying to hire more people and getting more equipment. We cannot bail the state out. The council has already passed, and we've already taken over portions of the state that cost us almost $38,000 a year, and the state reimburses us $12,000. We can't afford that. Because when we take one of our assets away from the roads that we're responsible for, then for the state, then it lacks in another area. This parish is big, has a lot of roads, but the majority of our issues are state roads. And until DOTD straightens up and steps to the plate and cuts more than 3 times a year, then we will always have this problem. One of the things I've been working on since I've gotten the campaign is the only one that DOTD listens to is the governor, not the legislature, not anyone else. And we need to hold the governor candidates accountable when they come down here and ask for our votes for this next election. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. LaRussa. Any other comments? If not, Ms. Rhonda Smith. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
Jason, Mr. Badron wants to
Yep.
use one of his.
Jason wants to use one of his.
One of his.
Thank you. So, when I see this issue talked about on social media and different places, the first thing we have to do is make sure we set up people to be successful. And once you set up people to be successful, you can then hold them accountable. What I've noticed is that residents are tired of hearing, it's the state, it's the local, it's this, pointing the finger and everything. And so I think there are opportunities in our government to spend our money more efficiently. And when you do that, you free up monies that says, if the state's not going to do it, if the state's only doing it 3 times, let's figure out a way to get it done anyway. And let's also make sure we get the right people in the room and we have conversations to fix issues like this. And so I've been involved in conversations understanding, who's responsible for this ditch and this right of way. And what I found is just by making a few phone calls or maybe tagging somebody on Facebook to give them an opportunity to understand this issue in the first place, they have been very responsive. We are coming off of a hurricane. We have gone through where a lot of our area was decimated. We still have trees in the bayous. And so it is a lot of work to pick up on with the state and also with the fact that we have a shortage of workforce. There's even some opportunities with technology and automation to supplement some of the workforce and maybe opportunities where somebody can control multiple devices at once. And so trying to look at doing things differently and trying to come up with more efficient ways to do stuff is the ways that we present and resolve issues for our residents who don't care who the problem belongs to.
All right, thank you, Mr. Badron, and no more hands are up, so we go back to Ms. Rhonda Smith, and she gets the last word on this issue since she had the first answer on it.
So again, as it relates to the grass cutting here in Terrebonne Parish, again, I think the accountability starts with us. So if the state is only committed to 3 times a year, then that onus becomes a Terrebonne Parish. So we have to find funding to support it in the interim. Secondly, we do have to have those relationships with legislators to talk about these issues. There's a lot of issues that we're going to have strong relationships to work toward to alleviate some of these problems in Terrebonne Parish, and that's just one of them. Secondly, in terms of staffing, as Mr. Badgeron stated, let's look at our staffing, see why people are in those jobs, what are the barriers in those jobs, and see what we can do. There is technology that's out there in terms of how we do lawn services, lawn care, and all those things. So let's just think a little bit out of the box. But one of the things that we do going forward, we have to be accountable what happens in Terrebonne Parish. And that means applying pressure to our legislator, and then also us looking into our pockets to see what we can do here in the interim with some type of funding to support that grass cutting. We're used to a beautiful Terrebonne Parish, and I would love to see that again, a beautiful Terrebonne Parish for all of us. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Smith. We will now go to our next question, which will go back to Mr. Badgeron. And here it is. Plenty of criticism has been levied at the parish for not taking control. It's another grass question, but it has a little difference. Grass is popular in this parish. levied on the parish for not taking control of grass on state property, which some of you alluded to. As parish president, what would you do to make sure that the state's grass problem does not reflect on Terrebonne Parish? So we could elaborate.
Yes, I can almost say ditto in a second, but I'm not going to say that.
Yeah.
So, like I was talking about a while ago in my rebuttal, is that when I look at the issues that are going on, and it's not just grass, it's roads, bridges, levees, it's everything it's a responsibility as a government as a whole to make sure these issues are resolved. And so when you talk about opportunities, again, when you look at that, a lot of money is wasted in government budgets, and in a situation where somebody has a $20,000 budget, they get down and have 15,000 left at the end of the year. It's kind of a use it or lose it, waste it on ever. So if you turn around and save that money, you can use it for other resources. In a situation where the state can't keep up with grass cutting, let's hire local contractors to help offset this, because again, we are coming back from a hurricane. And I know it's 2 years later, but we still have a lot of battles that we're fighting. And again, employee shortages are a real thing, and our companies and our employees deal with this on a regular basis. And so at the end of the day, it's coming up with different ways to do things, alternative solution, thinking outside the box, thinking about how government could be more efficient, and at the same time holding government more accountable. We're going to have a whole new administration coming out, governor on down, and so you're going to have new appointments. And so from there, let's get together, have conversations, let's bring up ideas, let's have fresh and new ways to do things. And I believe in insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. It's time to do things differently.
All right, thank you, Mr. Badger. Any rebuttals on that? We've pretty much killed the grass, right?
The grass is dead.
I hope not. We have 48 in the hopper. All right, here we go. Next question to Ms. Connie Berg. We can all agree, they started with a statement, we can all agree that the Bayou Country Sports Park has been a great addition to our parish. The question comes in, how could you expand on this idea?
Okay, expanding on recreation. Let's see, we could make sure our fields stay up and quality fields to attract large tournaments, to bring revenue into the parish, make sure we have all what we need at the sports complex to facilitate that. People want to come to a nice park, they'll have a nice park. I'd also like to see the recreation districts down the bayou stay down the bayou. They don't want to come to town to go to recreation, so they should have their own recreation departments. They like being down there. That's part of their community. It brings them together. But I love the fact that we have this beautiful sports park, and it'll come in very well later on down as we attract more tournaments and such to come into Terrebonne Parish, because that'll fill up our hotels, that'll fill up our restaurants. So I love the sports park. I think it's doing great. It's going to be a great addition to Terrebonne Parish. But I want to make sure that it's maintained into it stays a nice ballpark. And down the bayou, they're gonna maintain their own parks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Berg. Any follow-ups? Ms. Smith wants to use one of her rebuttals on that particular question.
So I think the Bayou Sports is an asset, definitely an asset to Terrebonne Parish. It's beautiful. I spent some time out there as well, but I also spent some time throughout Terrebonne Parish in terms of recreation, and a lot of the other areas just doesn't look the same. I would love to see a recreation area where things are mirrored. Things are at least equitable in terms of what recreation looks like. Again, I think it's an asset, but I think we need to look at some of our other recreational spaces throughout Terrebonne Parish to make sure that they look at least equity in terms of what's offered in those spaces. In terms of our children, was offered, the park systems and what they look like. So that's my feedback in terms of my thoughts in terms of the Bayou Sports Plaza, which is beautiful. It's a nice space, but I think we should be able to create some other space just as nice as those throughout Terrebonne Parish.
All right, thank you, Ms. Smith. And if no more rebuttals, we will go back to Ms. Connie Berg, and she can wrap up this dialogue on this topic.
Yes, I agree. The rest of the recreation departments are responsible for their own, they collect their taxes for their district, and it's up to them to make sure that they're recreation areas are kept up and maintained properly. They wanted to consolidate everything, but it didn't pass. So we have the main complex, which encompasses all of Houma, and then the bayous are responsible for themselves. So some of them have larger budgets than others, so that's why they're not as up to par. But I would think that at some point, maybe the budget could be looked at to where we could fill in for them. If I don't know if the tax is dedicated just to recreation. I'm not familiar on how that is right now, but I'm sure I can make myself familiar with it. But yes, there needs to be additional recreation areas for the kids to play. I have no problems with that. I'm all about recreation for children. I think that's the one way to keep them off the streets, is if they have a place to go to be recreated. I was very active in recreation, but it was back in the 80s. I'm kind of dated. So, but I really do think we're going in the right direction for recreation.
All right, thank you, Ms. Connie. We appreciate that. And our next question, pulled by Mr. Whiteside, will be from Ms. Sherry Champagne. All right, Ms. Champagne, what is your plan, or what would you be your plan, I guess, when it comes to planning and zoning for this parish? Describe in your answer whether you would keep planning and zoning in-house with parish administration, or would you allow it to be contracted out, sort of like they had it in the past with South Central Planning and Zoning?
I deal with planning and zoning quite a bit in Terrebonne Parish, and it's kind of meant to be for me to have this question. Absolutely, we will keep planning and zoning in-house, and there is a necessity to have a major oversight in the planning and zoning in Terrebonne Parish. Currently, there is absolutely none. There is no oversight for planning and zoning. Much of the stuff that the planning and zoning does currently, it's pretty much done by one person. There must be more oversight in planning and zoning in terms of if you have one person running the entire show. There is absolutely no way to be effective in planning and zoning. There can be no favors in planning and zoning. There can be no, if Tommy up the street needs a permit to have a driveway, and here we are again with 5G towers. These 5G towers do not have to have a permit, or they do not have to be regulated for safety. What I'm told with the planning and zoning as far as 5G, they're actually having a permit for whether the wind balance, and if it can take wind and rain and things like that. There is no planning and zoning safety compliance for the actual safety for the radiation. So planning and zoning should be kept in-house, and oversight is an absolute must, and that is exactly what I will do.
All right, thank you, Ms. Champagne. Any replies on that comment? Okay, everybody good? All right, so our next question pulled will be from Mr. Roy Chauvin. What is your plan to combat litter and illegal trash dumping in our great parish?
That's a good question. As a game warden, I kind of targeted that as the number one thing in the parish. I'd ride around in the boats and ride around on the side of the road, and people would literally throw stuff out the cars that was ridiculous. It's just a lack of pride, I think, in the people themselves. And it's I used to issue citations for it. I think Judge Fungi had a real nice way to handle it by making them go pick up trash. Now, I gave them the opportunity to go pick up the trash, go pick up your garbage, man. And what they would do, some of them would say, no, I'm not picking it up. Well, they got a ticket, I can tell you right now. And then Judge Fungi let them pick it up for 40 hours. But anyway, the parish is overall unsightly, the parish. There's a lot of buildings that need to come down, trash just everywhere, and a lot of it is because of the hurricanes. Some of the buildings, which I wanted to address, some of the buildings that are down, people can't afford to have them demolished. The parish needs to come up with something where they go in and demolish the building for the people at a reasonable cost. Someone down in Louisiana said it costs $360,000 to demolish a building. It's unreasonable. you're not gonna have it like that. So it sits as an eyesore. So that's basically it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chauvin. Any responses to his answer? Okay, Mr. LaRussa will use, let's see, he will use his second mulligan on this.
I think the parish does a good job at what they have to work with right now. We had a lull from the hurricane because we hired inmates to help out with the litter department. The problem was we had no more inmates in Terrebonne Parish. So now that we have inmates back under my administration, I would double the crews. Now, the people need to understand, it's not free. We have to pay the sheriff's office to have inmates work for us. That's number one. Number two, litter does not come from the sky. We have a society that throws stuff all over the place, like Mr. Chauvin said. It's a twofold situation. We can double the crews, get the litter, but also under my administration, I want to put a campaign and do a campaign like Keep Terrebonne Beautiful and implement it in the school system. And one day that child might shame their parents for littering and throwing stuff out of the window at times. But under my administration, I would definitely double the inmate work program for litter. Thank you.
All right, anybody else would like to respond? If not, Mr. Chauvin, according to the rules, you got the last word on it.
Well, that's a good idea to have the inmates do it, and also a good idea as well. I think enforcement needs to be better, because in dealing with enforcement, I saw a lot of people saw that as trivial, very trivial, and why you want to fool with something like that? Well, it's an eyesore when you're in the water and you see bottles floating by. I mean, does that attract tourism? No. Does that attract tourism when you see all the garbage on the side of the road? No, it doesn't. It shows that we have a trashy parish, and we need to address that and be serious about it and mandate to some of the public, those that say, I'm not picking up that trash, I'm gonna throw it on the side of the road. We need to do something with them, and it needs to be a serious something that needs to be done with them. We also need to, as far as the prisoners picking up the trash during the hurricane, that's one thing. Picking up, I would say let's make them pick it up all the time. You know, why we don't have crews, we see sheriff's office people all over the country picking up junk on the side of the road. Those are prisoners that are inmates that do time, but they get it for good behavior and they get out. So they get out. They don't make very much money. I don't know how much money. Maybe we're paying too much to the sheriff for the inmate program. But what we need to do is get more people out there. I agree with the sheriff's office thing, 100%, and pay them, but we need to watch how much we pay them.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And we're going to go to our next question. And this one will be for Mr. Darren Guidry. All right. Our governor mandated lockdowns and vaccines during COVID. As parish president, in the event of a relapse of COVID or a similar virus, would you go along with a mandate by the state? Or would you fight the mandate of a lockdown?
Well, I think we've pretty much seen that mandates don't work. We see what was happening in Florida with Ron DeSantis. He chose not to do the mandates, not to do the lockdowns, and his numbers were actually better than those communities that were very strict in their lockdowns. So no, we would not do that. We did not do that as a parish when this pandemic hit, and we will do it in the future, because it's been proven it doesn't work. You know, we need to protect people's constitutional rights. And, you know, one of them is their right to live and be free. People are smart. I believe the people of Terrebonne Parish, I give them a lot more credit than other people do. And I think they know how to keep themselves safe. They know how to wash their hands. They know how to, we need to remind people of things, but we don't need to make somebody wear a mask. You know, those type of mandates, again, have proven not to be effective. And if I am parish president and those things come down from the governor, then, you know, I don't intend to enforce them in Terrebonne Parish because, again, it's been proven it doesn't work. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Any rebuttals with whoever has any rebuttals left? Okay, none, so we will go to the next question, and this one will be for Mr. Michael Paul LaRusso. Nationwide, police officers are being placed at a disadvantage because of social erosion politics. How would you mandate that local police be treated by your administration if elected?
Well, it starts from the top, and I think parish president is in charge of the city police, and Mr. Travis Terrio is an excellent chief of police. We had an excellent one with Mr. Dana Coleman. I think it's time to get the police officers to be more involved in our communities, to have kids relate to them more, and not be scared of just the police at times. The SROs are really helping out in some schools right now, and hopefully administration and the school board could come together and put SROs in every school. But right now, I think we have new leadership under Mr. Chief Terrio, and working hand in hand, and as long as we could provide the resources that he requests, I think we'll be all right.
All right, thank you for that. And Mr. Roy Chauvin would like to have a say-so on that also?
Well, being in law enforcement, I'm gonna tell you what the problem is. The problem is that law enforcement officers are not protected by anyone. They're subject to the political whims of everybody that comes along, and even the good people sitting here maybe at times may have asked for help on some kind of citation or some kind of thing that went wrong. The law enforcement in general is strapped by that, and to say that you're gonna just ask the people to comply, that's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. We need more respect for law enforcement. There's no respect at all for law enforcement in this country. There's no respect for law enforcement here. They'll stand up there in your face and they'll tell you what they think, and they'll dare you to touch them, or they'll dare you to do anything about it. And I think that that's a deplorable condition in the country itself. We're sitting here, and law enforcement officers with the body cams and all, I don't know if you ever had this, but it takes us, I've been shot at. It takes a split second to make a decision to kill somebody. The blink of an eye, and you got to decide to kill or don't kill. And that's what a law enforcement officer has to put up with. Daily, he has to put up with that. So they're shying away from even doing anything, a lot of law enforcement people, because they're afraid to get sued. I've been sued numerous times for my actions. I've been investigated by the FBI for civil rights violations. That was frivolous. And I just think it's pitiful, the whole system.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chauvin. Ms. Rhonda Smith has her hand up, and she would like to weigh in. Go ahead.
So as a United States Army veteran, right, my job was to protect and serve this country, and I did that, even up into a deployment. For police officers, their job is to protect and serve our communities, and most of them do a pretty good damn job of doing it. A lot of them are veterans. But I want to say we need to have cultural sensitivity when we go into our communities that are black and brown folks. It looks much different. It looks a lot different. So I would just expect that when we go into our communities that look black and brown, that we keep cultural sensitivity on top of that list. Thank you.
All right, any other weigh-ins before Mr. LaRusso gets the final word? Okay, Mr. LaRusso.
Again, I think it starts from the top on down, and as long as we provide all our resources to all our law enforcement that risk their lives on a daily basis to protect our freedom, I think we will be in better shape.
All right, very good. Our next question will be for Ms. Rhonda Smith. And simple question, but can't wait to hear the answer. All right. In your opinion, what is the single biggest commodity Terrebonne Parish?
Single biggest commodity, I guess I would have to say our uniqueness. Again, I think we're very unique in who we are here in Terrebonne Parish. And I think one of my platforms would be around tourism. Just a quick story. I was out having dinner one day, and I had a guest that was from out of town. And one of the persons that was in the restaurant would be at the time, they were from how we would say down the bayou. So they had a French accent. So the person just sat and they listened to them speak for a while. And I'm like, I'm done with dinner now, let's go. But they were interested because they're curious. So I think one of our greatest commodities is who we are. Not to be something different. We have to also, again, look at some of the things that we have to work on in Terrebonne Parish, but also we have to make sure that we're focusing a lot on our strengths. And those are one of those things. So I would like to see us build something into our tourism industry where someone can come here and have a meal, but also we can have cooking classes such as like gumbo, someone actually teaching you how to make a good gumbo. Also, just in terms of that dialect, you know, we have something called a Rougarou Fest here that goes on. So how do we incorporate our strengths into what Terrebonne Parish is to attract more people to come here and see who we are? Thank you.
All right. Anybody else would like to comment on that? All right, so this next question will be for Mr. Jason Bergeron, starting another round.
Round 3. Ding, ding, ding.
Round 3.
Let's get it on.
Each year, we are threatened by tropical events. And as we all know, some years we become the bullseye for devastating storms. What is your general plan for a major hurricane event in Terrebonne Parish?
So because of the major hurricane event, I think that already we've had a lot of experience, probably more experience than we should when it comes to a major hurricane event. But I think the best way when you look at a game like football, basketball, you get better by practicing. And I think we need to do some things on a regular basis to make sure that we're all prepared for as many issues as possible. I mean, even if you look in the last storm where the worst case scenario happened and we lost communications, we need to have things in place that is a fail-safe for the fail-safe for the fail-safe. We have to make sure our residents are protected. We have to make sure that our property is protected, secondly. And so we have to ensure that we have the right resources, that those resources have the right tools, and that they are set up for success. And so it's not a matter of if, it's going to be a matter of when. And we just got to make sure that we learn from the issues of the past, and we also work together as a community and as a region to find our strengths, work together with our strengths, and at the end of the day, help make sure that we have the most success and have things planned and ready to go right when, you know, when you look at how the power line groups do it after the storm, have things lined up, have resources, make sure that we have some plans in place. And at the end of the day, in every case we can, not work right on the government, make sure that we have everything in place to handle the basic needs and some of the things that I did after the storm around those basic needs and getting people what they need as quickly as possible. We can also partner with our nonprofits to make sure we have a single source of entry, that everything goes through and resources are not wasted.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bergeron. Anybody would like to comment on that? If not, our next question is for Ms. Connie Berg. Interesting.
Oh, boy.
There are many different personalities on the parish council. What makes you able to get along with all the personalities to move the parish forward?
Oh, boy. Well, I'm a people person. I like to talk. I'll talk to you till you change your mind. No, I'm just kidding. I like to joke around. I like to get along with people. I think I'm very skilled at talking to people and hearing people out and seeing all their different ideas. I welcome diverse conversation. I like to think out the box. So I welcome all ideas. This is not going to be a me parish president. I want the input of all my council people and department heads before we make a big decision. And I think I can just about get along with anybody. But I will fight for our parish and what I think needs to be done. I have no problems with that. But I'm pretty much friends with everybody on the council right now. I've met all of them, and we all get along pretty good. I like to see people happy, but I'm not going to go down the wrong road for just anybody, you know what I mean, or anybody, period, for that matter. We can talk it out, and I think we'd all get along just fine. I have no other expectation but to get along.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Berg. Anybody else would like to weigh in? If not, our next question will be from Ms. Sherry Champagne. Low to moderate income family housing is seen in most cities. Do we need more of this in Terrebonne Parish? And what would you propose, if in favor or maybe not in favor?
First and foremost, absolutely. There are so many different opportunities that we currently have that are unfinished, that the project was projected and not finished. And so we currently have, there on the east side, we have a low-income housing development that was started and not finished. We have plenty of other opportunities that this low-income housing, the opportunity is there, and for some reason, for many reasons, they're not completed. And that would be one of the first things that I attack when I am voted in as parish president, is ensuring that the low-income families have adequate, safe housing, and the developments that are currently either projected or underway would be finished. That is very important. We have used so much of the taxpayers' dollars. We have used so much of the federal government's money and our dollars to start these projects, and they're not finished. So one of the projects that is not finished currently on East Street, that would be one of the first projects. There are so many people right now waiting for those homes, and that is a priority that we finish that. And we actually find more places to make sure that we do have adequate housing. Now, there are so many different ways that we can make that happen, and it's not always a cookie cutter situation, but the opportunity is there, and we absolutely have to have that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Champagne. Anybody would like to add to that? If not, our next question is going to be from Mr. Roy Chauvin. Keith, I'm not wearing you out pulling all those questions.
I'm good, man. Working on my toss.
All right. Yeah, I got a TENS unit you could use. All right, looking forward, you want to be parish president. What would you want your legacy to be after you're parish president? What would you like to do when you're in office?
Easy. I'd like to seek fairness, honesty, and justice. And I'd like to leave that as my legacy. My legacy is something that I've worked on all my life, of fairness, honesty, and justice. I seek that every day. It's a very difficult, and it's kind of surreal. Many people look on that as being utopian, so to speak, not real. And the perfect life, but I know the world isn't perfect, and it's going to be a very tough struggle to try to incorporate that, because people are used to playing games, playing politics, getting favors done, purse strings being filled and pulled, and I definitely don't want to leave as a puppet administrator of the public or of the man that put somebody in office. I want the poor man to put me in office, and that's who I'm going to fight for. And that's what my legacy I want it to be. The old oyster fisherman sitting under the tree, shucking a sack of oysters, that has no idea about politics. He is as important as the $1 million man in Houma, Louisiana, and that's who I want to represent.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chauvin. Anybody would like to elaborate on that? If not, we'll go to our next question, and it'll be for Mr. Darren Guidry. The parish manager, the parish attorney, the assistant parish attorneys are all appointed positions. Who would you keep and who would you replace?
Well, first of all, I made no promises to anybody that they're going to have any particular positions in this parish. Now, you mentioned the parish manager. The parish manager is an employee. And the employees of Terrebonne Parish, all of them, I think it is my duty to try to work with the employees that we have, because it's a job, it's a livelihood. But if they don't get with the program, then you have to get somebody who can. But we do have a lot of good employees in Terrebonne Parish. Now, you mentioned the attorney, you mentioned some of the assistant attorneys. Those are contract people, and we're going to be looking at all of our contractors. And, those, we're going to want to make sure that we get the best contractors there are. If we have a contractor with the parish who happens to be the best person, we're going to keep that contractor. But the employees, you have to protect the employees and their jobs and at least try to work with the people you have. And if they can't get, they can't do the job the way you need to be, then they have to be replaced. So we're going to do that. We're going to evaluate everything when we get in there. But I can tell you what, we're going to make sure that our parish is run very lean. We're going to make sure that we are spending every dollar very, very wisely. We're going to make sure that we're not giving people a raise just to give them a leg up or just here. This is we're going to award good people, reward good people. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Guidry. Anybody would like to comment on that? If not, our next question is going to be for Mr. Michael Paul LaRussa. What is your biggest complaint about Terrebonne Parish currently, and what would you do to fix it as parish president?
I think the biggest complaint I have right now is, and I just think it's government as a whole. We can't get things done fast enough. It's the bureaucracy that we go through, and it's the way the system is set up. The FEMA reimbursement process is a joke from the national FEMA group. It takes years before we touch money. I really think, it's coming from the private sector, being a small business owner. The biggest problem we will have is not be able to do things fast like the private sector. And, the best thing we can do is I can use my political context to try to expedite some of the process, but from street lights to roads, especially after the hurricane, it just doesn't happen fast enough. And that's probably my biggest complaint. And it's just the way the system is set up.
Right. Thank you, Mr. LaRussa. You have, you're out of mulligans.
You're up.
But you're up next.
Ja-
You're up next.
Yeah, Jason
Yeah.
does have a second
Yeah,
left.
okay. So Jason raised his hand, okay.
Okay.
I was going to buy that.
I was about to say, can I sell some for charity?
Wow.
I might sell some for charity.
Charitable. I like it. For a charitable donation.
All right, Mr.
I'm sorry, Jason.
Badron.
So when we talk about the systems in place and we talk about how slow things move, one of the reasons why I'm running, because I think it's time for government to change. It's time to do things more efficiently. So when you look at the process of why we're waiting so long to spend money with FEMA, it's because FEMA went to New Orleans 15 years after and asked for money back because they say they didn't spend it properly. So in conversations that I have with how we could do things differently, when you look at a storm that comes in as a Category 2 or Category 3, and that storm has a certain amount of damage on average, you could take the low number of that and say, we're going to give you 75% of that up front. You don't have to wait 2 years. We still have residents living in trailers, mobile homes that are state and federally provided. You don't have to wait 2 years. We're going to give you money right away. We're going to give you a decent amount of money so that you get your parish growing. One of the reasons why Terrebonne Parish is the third most lost population in the country is because people see despair and people see destruction and they get tired of seeing it and they develop apathy. So if we get 75% of that funds that we know we're going to get right away, we could come back and get the other 25% right and take the time to make sure the money's spent properly. And so if you have the right systems in place, you have the right opportunities to where you can make sure this is how it's done, it's successful, and people see change and difference faster.
All right, thank you, Mr. Badron. And it comes back to the original, and Mr. LaRussa has 90 seconds to close this question.
I've never heard of the 75% right-of-way situation. The way the FEMA handles it in the federal government, you have to go through a procurement process, and once the procurement's done, then you have to hire the contractor. Then parish has to spend their own money, and then once the parish spends it, we get reimbursed. That does take time. I never heard of the Santa Claus 75% here, go make your life of it, and let's fight it out at 25%. So I never, in all my experience, the timing and the way that FEMA operates is a joke. And we need to get with our congressional leaders and fast track that ASAP, because people are suffering, and yes, you are right. We have 2,000 people living in trailers right now. We have a housing crisis on our hands. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. So, Ms. Aranda, now you'll get the next question, okay? What are the main sources of funding for coastal restoration work, and which do you think is the most important? That's a
What are the-
tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one. I've actually took some time to read through the master plan for coastal restoration for Terrebonne Parish. There's a multitude of resources and funding for coastal restoration. There's programs that are currently that they're working on. There's some that's future that they're working on. What I would have to add is that to make sure that we have funding for anything around coastal restoration and flood protection for anything that happens that we didn't plan for. So not just a hurricane, but just rainfall. A lot of those times, due to drainage problems, we'll have, as a result of that, we'll have some flooding here in Terrebonne Parish. So in terms of, as it relates to funding, we need to make sure that we have local funding that's available to handle those situations here in Terrebonne Parish.
All right. Anybody would like to? Mr. Roy Chauvin, you have
He
one
does.
left. One left.
Coastal restoration is a joke. We do not maintain the islands. What the problem is with coastal restoration is that lucrative contracts, if I had an hour and a half, I could tell you exactly what's going on with the coastal restoration. I have had direct contact as a wildlife agent with coastal restoration people. And what the problem is that lucrative contracts go out, and we have studied the islands to death, to the point that they don't exist anymore. I can't help it, I am passionate about it. Wine Island is a great example of man's failure in coastal restoration. Wine Island was rebuilt, beautiful island, great big island, hundreds of thousands of dollars built. You know where Wine Island is today? Underwater. And it's a hazard out there. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. We need to readdress the whole coastal zone management thing, pull it back. The islands are gone. The islands are gone. You can talk about this all you want. It's gone. Go to Montague, stand up on the levee. You're looking at the Gulf of Mexico. From the levee to the Gulf of Mexico, it's Gulf of Mexico. And we need to reassert ourselves and pull that coastal restoration or coastal zone management, the barricade, rocket, and never stop. It's 24/7 job. It's just as important as the levee.
Thank you, Mr. Chauvin. And Ms. Smith, you have the last word on this according to our rules.
So due to where we reside geographically, coastal restoration is always going to be an issue here. I can agree that sometimes the funding and contracts is something we need to look at. Obviously, as a parish president, that's one of the things I definitely would take a look at. In terms of preservation, I just want to ensure that we have what we need as a community to stay safe as it relates to flood protection here in our community. Thank you.
All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna start another round, but before we do, we're gonna have a minute and a half to thank a few sponsors who are always there for HTV. So let's roll in about a minute and a half, give everybody a chance to take a swig of water, and then we're gonna come right back with another round, and we'll start with Mr. Bergeron again. So let's roll in those spots real quick. Everybody stretch. Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bourke, know your rights. South Louisiana Bank, it's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Alford and Associates, for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. All right, we are back, and I'm Martin Falls. Keith Wysite, who you see a lot on the channel, is helping me out, pulling some doozies, some questions. And candidates are doing pretty good. They're answering them honestly, and they're diving in. So we're going to start round 4. Here we go.
Ding, 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 ding.
And this one's going to be from Mr. Jason Badron. Currently, the parish president and the parish consul share an attorney. Is this a conflict of interest? Why or why not?
Thank you, Martin. So in my experience, and one of the things I do in my small businesses is I deal with contracts. In a situation with a contract, it's making sure that you're represented properly. But one of the things that I've always done in working with an attorney is I've never had an attorney represent both sides. So I think it is important to make sure that each group has its own representation and that the attorney represents the party that they answer to. Because when you address two parties, who do you answer to? And so at the end of the day, it's an attorney responsibility to make sure that you're answering to the party that pays you, that you answer to responsibly, and that you can't work both sides of that. So I think it is important that each entity, that as it relates to home rule charter and the rules that are in place, then each entity that should have its own attorney be represented that way.
All right, thank you, Mr. Badron. Anybody else? I guess who has a mulligan left, right?
That would be Darren and
Yeah,
Connie.
Darren and Connie have one left. Okay, I don't see any hands going up. So our next question for Ms. Connie Berg. How will you facilitate the funding of ongoing maintenance needs of Terrebonne Parish infrastructure?
Well, let's hope we have some tax revenue. Yeah, that's gonna be an issue for the rest of our lives. I mean, those levees have to be maintained. Morganza to the Gulf has to be maintained. So the longer it goes, it's going to get interesting, I'm sure. But hopefully, our tax base will increase. Hopefully, we can attract new people to the parish, and so we can increase our tax base. Because the more people that move out, that's less tax revenue we have. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how we're going to have to maintain, to keep the funds to maintain, because I don't want to go up on anybody. I don't want to go up on taxes. I'm hoping to look at that budget and be able to cut taxes if I possibly can, because we're the highest tax-based parish in the state, to my knowledge, or that's what I've heard. So I think we need to streamline government and cut out as much waste as possible, so we will have the funds to maintain those levees and maintain, because they're going to have to be maintained. So it's going to be something that's going to have to be worked on, and we're just going to have to get creative, I guess. But that's something for the future to decide. And that's as honest as I can be about it, because nobody knows what's going to happen in the future.
All right, thank you, Ms. Berg. Our next question is going to be from Ms. Sherry Champagne. And let's see what Keith pulled out the hopper.
It's all your fault, Keith.
There we go. What current industry growth projects are going on in Terrebonne Parish, and which one do you think is the most important to our parish, or which one would you create that would be more important than any of them?
So, Terrebonne is in itself, the name is Good Earth. And so when we have a shrimping industry, we have a seafood industry, all of that industry, we need to build on that industry, and we need to make sure that that industry is strong. And the individuals that are involved with the industry can tell you many conversations with many of the shrimpers and the oystermen and the fishermen. We need to build on the industry. We need to make it more effective for them, and we need to make it more effective for the people of Terrebonne Parish. And the other industries, obviously our oil industry is struggling. We have so many things that can change if we want to change them. However, we're seeing right now that there is no effective change happening. And so increasing the awareness for our shrimping industry and our seafood industry, travel and tourism is huge. We need to put an emphasis on our youth. I believe that if we have an entrepreneurial program for our youth and teach them to build their own businesses and teach them how to do that and give them the tools to do that, that's important as well. So all of the industries here, whether it be the seafood industry, oil industry, the medical field, things like that, that's something that we need to actively promote and create more jobs, and that's exactly what I plan to do as Terrebonne Parish President.
All right, thank you, Ms. Champagne. And I will say this, yeah, we have a hand up. I was gonna say, if you're gonna use your mulligan, this is probably the last round before closing statement, so use your mulligan. We have 2 left. All right, go ahead.
Terrebonne Parish has some natural resources, and we need to use those to help grow industry. We also have these flood protection projects we're doing. We now need to capitalize on that. We're building a lock at the end of the Houma Navigation Canal. The HNC is the source of where our saltwater intrusion comes in and creates salt water inside the intracoastal. As a matter of fact, oftentimes the intracoastal can't be used as a drinking water source because it's too salty. Well, when we finish this lock in the next 2.5 years, we will freshen up the intracoastal waterway. We now have to go after industry that needs access to fresh water. Why do they need to compete for water rights in Arkansas or Ohio when we've got plenty of fresh water here? We have plenty of yards available for some of the yards that have moved out as a result of the depression in the oil industry. Let's bring manufacturing here that need water in their manufacturing process. They need it to cool their systems and such. But we also need to invest in the Terrebonne Economic Development Authority. I will fully fund TITA because TITA is our salesperson. We're a car lot without any car salespeople. So we're going to use TITA to go out there and to sell to site location consultants looking for locations. And we're going to try to get those to locate here and other places that are competing for water. Come here. We have access to fresh water. Thank you very much.
All right. And so unless Ms. Connie Berg wants to rebut on this question, you can save it for the others. Okay. Yeah, we'll let Sherry close the question.
She's gonna sell it to me.
All right.
I agree with that. Obviously, there are so many more industries and effectiveness that we can use in Terrebonne Parish. There's so much more that we can do in having the waterways here, and that's very important as well. We can use what we have, and that's extremely important. And what I see currently is that we're not doing that. We're not doing that in many of the industries and the fields that we have, and making it effective and fiscally responsible. And we do have quite a bit of the funding that is available to make these happen. And whether it be we have a gym that we can bring in an industry that would require a sports, adding on to the sports park, which would be a gym that we can bring in tournaments, which it obviously brings in those things that correlate with having an additional industry. There's so much we can do, and there's so much that we are not doing. And that's exactly what I plan on doing as Terrebonne Parish President, is making all of those industries work for us, the people of Terrebonne Parish. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Champagne. And our next question is going to be from Mr. Roy Chauvin. What qualifications or talents do you possess that would give you the ability to acquire money from our state and federal delegation for projects in Terrebonne Parish?
A big mouth. I have a big mouth, and I'm not afraid to use it. It's free. God gave it to me. And I'm very opinionated on things that I think is important to me. And it correlates with a lot of the people that I've spoken to in the parish. This is the first time I ever ran for political office. And I see the frustration in the people. And you have to be able to advance yourself in such a way that people will understand what you're doing for the parish. Yeah, transparency, I guess you would call it, I'm not sure. Politically correct, I'm not. But my best asset is, I hate to say this, but you know, I do have a college degree. I am, and it's important. It well rounds you. You know, I did go to law school a little while, and I tried to keep my education up as much as I could. And I think that that fact alone itself, when a company comes in here, a big business would come in here, they're gonna wanna talk to somebody that's educated. They're gonna wanna talk to somebody that is willing to speak to them and get on their own terms. They don't want a hermit, that's gonna sit there and not say anything, or somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. And we do have that a lot of times in government, that they don't know what they're talking about, and they spread their ignorance.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chauvin. And if Ms. Berg doesn't want to use her rebuttal, we'll move on to Mr. Darren Guidry. And this will be the next question. What would be your top 3 additions to quality of life projects in Terrebonne Parish?
Well, the top 3 additions, well, we need to finish the sports park. The sports park is not finished based on its master plan, which means, of course, we have to build things like tennis courts, because right now we're using tennis courts at Renaissance that we're leasing, and at any moment we can lose. And we have several schools that do tennis tournaments there. So we need to fix those. We also need to, there's a multi-use facility, a multi-use, I don't want to say a gym, because it's really a multi-use building that we need to build, because that will also help to attract certain things that we can't attract right now. We actually have a lot of facilities that have been closed as a result of the storm. But we also need to, we had talked about the sports park, but there's also the air base. We need to also look at the air base and how we can invest in that, and maybe have the two work hand in hand, because we could have a bigger facility if we had also assets at the air base. We could also split the hotel rooms. Now we're talking about developing the east side as well as developing the west side. We're also building a series of off-road bike trails. I began it in my district. It's going to be breaking ground in the 4th quarter. It'll go from the Civic Center to the sports park, but then we're going to add it to where it goes throughout Terrebonne Parish. We could continue bike trails. People should be able to ride their bike throughout our parish and not take a car and not have to get on the highway or on the road. So we're going to do a whole lot of quality of life projects. We have kayak canoe parks. We have a lot planned. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Guidry. No rebuttal, so we'll go to our next question, and it'll be from Mr. Michael Paul LaRussa. And the question is, what would your drainage priorities be for Terrebonne Parish? Please cite in your answer what are the problem areas and how you would aim to fix the problems.
Well, right now, this past administration has doubled our pump capacity pretty much, and we have pump stations in place all over the parish. What came first, the chicken or the egg? I want to do a comprehensive drainage maintenance plan on our ditches throughout the parish, where instead of we going from problem to problem, we'll have a routine maintenance throughout the parish. This administration right now has crews digging ditches all over the parish, but we have a lot of drainage issues as far as the ditches overgrown. We must have miles and miles of ditches throughout the parish. I would like, if budget permit, to double that crew, to put more out. But another thing is, we need to notify the residents that what is being happened in their area. We need to be more transparent of where we digging and what are we doing. We need a better job of getting the message out of the work that is being done by these hardworking people in the drainage department.
All right, thank you, Mr. LaRussa. Connie got 2 shots left at that mulligan, I'm just reminding. All right, okay. I don't want nobody to say we took your mulligan, all
I
right?
know, I was hoping not to have to use it, but.
All right, 90 seconds.
Okay. Oh, yeah. One of my big pet peeves. I've been cleaning ditches. I cleaned the one by my house, and the drainage guys came. I had the drainage guys come out, and I told them, I said, I want it dug. I said, I did my part. I cleaned it. I said, now it's time for you to come dig it. So they were apprehensive at first, but I wouldn't let them leave. I'll talk to them until I talked them into digging the ditch. Well, guess what? I had an excavator in my yard 2 days later, and my ditch was dug. So I've actually cleaned a couple of ditches in Terrebonne Parish personally. I am all about digging ditches. I don't want to spray ditches. I don't want to see another piece of yellow grass in this parish. I want ditches dug. And if there's always more than one way to skin a cat. If you can't get to the ditch one way, find a way. If you have to get in there with a shovel, I'm fine with that too. But I want those ditches dug. They have to be clean. Yes, the grass is gonna grow, the water will flow through the grass, but it won't flow near as fast as if it's clean. So, yeah, that's one of my biggest things that I want. We should have an excavator dedicated to every bayou in this town, in this parish, where they continually keep these ditches clean. Because if the water can't get to the pump can't pump the water out. So, yes, that is one of my major concerns about the parish.
All right, thank you, Ms.
Okay.
Berg, and I will let Mr. LaRussa, according to the rules, close out this particular topic.
An excavator in every bayou is a great idea. Where we'll get the funding and where we'll get the manpower right now is probably our biggest problem. And it's just not in Terrebonne, it's manpower throughout the whole United States. And we can't just keep contracting out all the time. We just don't have the funds. But yes, ditches need to be dug when needed, sprayed in areas that need to be sprayed, but we just need to do, now that we have our pumps in place, now it's time to get the water to the pumps.
All right, thank you, Mr. LaRussa. This will be, this will be the final question on the rounds, then we're going to start getting into closing statements. Ms. Aranda, how many employees approximately are employed by Terrebonne Parish, and what would be your opening dialogue with them if elected? What would you say to them on the first meeting?
So honestly, I'm not sure how many people we have employed at Terrebonne Parish. I'm familiar with each department, of course, of Terrebonne Parish, but the amount of staff currently, I'm not sure. But one of the things I guess for me and my background in terms of people voices matter, whether it's in Terrebonne Parish government or whether it's with an organization. So my go-to would always be to start with the department heads and have those conversations and understand what's going on within their departments. Secondly, I don't want to dismiss anyone within a department. I want to talk to the staff and the personnel as well and hear some of their concerns so we can determine how to move forward and make an assessment of what needs to happen with each specific department to make sure that each department head is properly trained in terms of their roles and their function. It's not the goal to go in and to clean house. The goal is to go in and see how well we're performing, how we can perform better. We can build, again, on our strengths that we have, and if we need to train some folks, then we're open to do that as well. So that's my goal if I'm elected as Terrebonne Parish, to just make sure that ensure that just as I listen to the constituent voices, I will go into Terrebonne Parish government, go to the department heads, and also the personnel and listen to their voices, because their voices matter. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to hold the mic there because now we're getting to the closing statements, and we're going to go in reverse order since we went left to right to start. We'll go right to left, depending if you're watching on TV or if you're in my seat, right? I don't want anybody to go, what's he talking about? All right, so Ms. Aranda Smith, you have 90 seconds to close in. You may work in, it's all in fair game to work in if you want to work in a passion that you heard that you ran out of mulligans, but you have 90 seconds starting now.
So my candidate slogan is One Terrebonne. One Terrebonne. And what that means is that we're in a system that we're all connected and interrelated in this system. And I just want to charge with each and every one of you out there that listen to recognize your part in this system and the part you play. Bureaucracy can be a slow process. So I want to charge each and every one of you with what can you do, whether you're a nonprofit or whether you're an individual in the community. How can you become an asset to our community? As a leader, I'm always going to go ahead. I'm always going to listen to your voice. But I want to hear your concerns, what matters to you. I have a background of service. Service is all I know. Prior to the military, I was serving. I've always been a servant leader, and I'm going to continue to do that. We have some things that we have to work on here in Terrebonne Parish. We have some infrastructure issues. We have some things around our recreation, and sometimes amusement comes up as well. We don't have any amusement here in our parish, so hopefully we can attract that into our parish in the short term. Roads and bridges, behavior, health, and addictions. We didn't touch on that. Community safety. So we do have some things that we have to touch on. But again, we have a lot of strengths. I'm very, very excited and passionate about leading Terrebonne Parish forward as one Terrebonne, all voices being heard.
All right, thank you, Ms. Aranda Smith. Now we'll go to Mr. Michael Paul LaRussa.
Thank you for listening and thank you for participating in this important process. When I began with my opening remarks, I told you a little bit about who I'm fighting for. Now, I'd like to tell you who's fighting for you. In my professional career, I've spent the last 30 years working to make the American dream of home ownership possible for countless families in our community. I successfully fought for a pay raise for our teachers. I worked with state and local leaders to create a strong defense against storm damage. I've gone to Baton Rouge. I've worked with lawmakers to solve critical problems that plagued our parish and state. And I did this all as a volunteer, as someone who truly loves this parish. I'm Michael Paul LaRussa, and I'm asking for your vote. If you give me the chance, I'll invest in local businesses, eliminate wasteful spending, and fight for both state and federal funds to create better flood protection, safer streets, and a better quality of life for all the residents. There's nothing we can't accomplish when we're united, and my pledge is to bring us all together for the greater good. I'd be honored to have your support. Thank you, and God bless.
All right, thank you, Mr. LaRussa. We will now go to Mr. Darren Guidry.
In 2014, my wife and I sold our publishing business with the idea of slowing down. But God had other plans, and He inspired me to run for Terrebonne Parish Council. I answered the call, and the people of District 6 elected me to serve as their councilman in 2015. And I work hard serving the people of District 6, answering phone calls, Facebook messages, emails, texts, and I will work just as hard serving the people of Terrebonne Parish as parish president. As councilman, I worked through the night at the Emergency Operations Center during storms, and then worked with residents to help them get back after the storm. In 2019, the voters overwhelmingly chose to elect me to continue as their councilman for a second term. A year later, my fellow council members elected me to be the council chairman, a position I held for 2 years, filling in for Parish President Dove when he was not in town. As a two-term councilman, I see firsthand the challenges that the next parish president will face, and it scares me. We need a parish president that has the experience enough to address these challenges. That's why I'm running. Experience, leadership, and hard work. That's helped me become a successful councilman, and that's what I'll use to be a successful parish president. Please vote Darren Guidry, parish president, in October.
All right, thank you, Mr. Guidry. And we now go to Mr. Roy Chauvin.
This has been the hardest 90 seconds that I ever had to deal with. I can tell you that right now. I'm not going to, as parish president, I'm not going to have 90 seconds to deal with issues and answer questions in a 90-second interval. I think it's very unfortunate, but that's the way the system is set up. I think that we need to have a voter revolution, and the revolution is to be fair, honest, and just. Politics, people are fed up with politicians, they're fed up with politics. They're so disgusted that they don't want to have anything to do. I even talked to people who said that they didn't want to even vote anymore. They were just so tired of it, hearing the rhetoric that we all say. So the revolution should come as a voter, and it's the people that need to do it, not me, not anybody sitting here. It's the people that need to revolt. And I believe that if we don't do something about what's going on in this country and in this parish, which affects this parish, that we would still be drinking British tea and taxation without representation before like 1776. So the people need to get up and vote and not sit back and say, I can't do anything about it. And if they vote their conscience, I'm gonna be in good shape, So I wish that things would be a lot better for the parish. It's not, but it could be, and it will be if I'm elected. Roy Chauvin.
And I'd like to make a little comment. I'd love to give y'all all about 4 or 5 minutes in the answer, but with half the city running for parish president, okay, but I'm glad to see half the city's running.
This is true. This is
But I feel your pain, no doubt.
Yes, this
All
is
right,
very true.
Ms. Sherry Champagne.
So, transparency, accountability, crime, education, economy, drainage, all of those things that are extremely important, that is exactly what I will make priority. It is not only just me, this entire parish is my family. I raised my family here, my grandchildren are here. The education system, the economy, crime, everything that everyone speaks to me and everyone here about, that is priority. I will make that priority every single day, every day that I come to work for you, the parish, the people. Every single day I do that now. I have spent more than 30 years serving my community, and as a volunteer, as for everything that I do, I give back. Giving back to my community is extremely important to me. I not only believe that if you do something to make a change, that's the only way the change can happen. I believe in getting involved to assist in making that change happen. And if you take your time to look around you and ask your fellow constituents and your people around you and your family, ask them what they believe is most important to them. And I believe that everything that I just said to you is one of the most important things, if not all of them, is on every single dinner table. And I promise to the community that it is exactly what I will do for you. You are my family.
Well, thank you, Ms. Champagne. Ms. Connie Berg?
Okay, here we go. Um, I'm excited to be back in Terrebonne Parish. I think we're making history here with as many people who are running for parish president. I'm excited to see this kind of activity for running for Terrebonne Parish because the people, I think this is the first time you truly have a variety of people to choose from. It's not either or. So don't take it lightly. Get out there and vote. Don't let people tell you that it's done already. That's ridiculous. It's only done when you vote. You have to go out and vote. So I hope we don't have any voter apathy out there because really, unless you have to make the decision and you have a wide choice to make. So I hope you take advantage of that choice to make a difference. Um, I am of the thought, my degree is in common sense, plain and simple. I'm not all that complicated. I believe in just common sense. I'm excited. We moved away for 4 years. I came back. I came back to a hurricane and COVID. And I feel like I needed to do something other than just sit here and complain. I got out there. I did things for the parish, and I'm proud of that. And that's why I want to run for parish. That's why I am running for parish president. Connie Berg.
All right, thank you, Ms. Connie. We appreciate it. Mr. Jason Badron?
When I was in middle school, we went through one of our many economic downturns due to oil and gas. At that time, my family was too rich for food stamps and too poor for food. I wore one pair of pants, and many people have heard that story. But since that time, the Lord's put me on a path to where I sit today, running for parish president. As your next parish president, I'm going to bring innovation. I'm going to bring leadership. I'm going to bring opportunity. I'm going to do things differently. When you talk about the situation earlier, where we talk about digging ditches, well, sometimes you got to look at a situation differently. And when you look at laying material in that ditch to where you do that one time and spending the money on that costs less than cutting it 1,000 times, again, it's about doing things differently. And so I had a calling to run. I'm putting my heart into Terrebonne Parish. I've done that for as long as I can remember to make Terrebonne Parish better. This was the next best opportunity for me to take care of our community. Keep in mind, based on historical voting, less than 25% of the residents will decide the future of our parish. Please make sure you get out and vote. And if you're not registered, please register. October 14th is the date to decide the future of Terrebonne Parish. And I ask you to do basically what my website is. My website is voteforjason.com. And that's what I ask you to do. Put your trust in me, and let's take Terrebonne Parish to the next level. I want to move Terrebonne forward. Vote for Jason. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And before we roll in some sponsors at the end, I just want to thank all of y'all for putting your name up. That's a tough thing to do when you put your name up for public service because you know you're going to get hammered, and I'll see you shaking your head and smiling a little bit. Comes with the territory. It's unfortunate, but we had a great dialogue today. It was very professional. And thank y'all for putting your name up. And I would pray whoever makes it into the second, I don't think anyone will win in the first, but I could always be wrong. But that others show up to lead them along, him or her, or whoever it is. Maybe some of the others could go to the after party and show you support. And Keith, I want to close by thanking you and the crew at HTV. A lot of setup for this and a lot of great dialogue. And your thoughts as we wrap up.
Well, it's interesting that people talk all the time about wanting to do things differently, and they say, I'm trying. There's a difference between trying and doing. There's those people that talk about what they want to do, and then there are those of you here doing something, saying, I want your vote, I want to do this. And being able to come on and share that with the public and be able to let them know exactly what your plans are, I think it makes a huge difference. And so I thank you for not only the time, but being able to say yes to serving. Because that's what I think that we have a little bit of a problem with our labor right now is people don't say yes to serving. And you have all said yes, at least to the first part of serving.
Yeah, and I just also want to let the public know that Miss Krista DePlantis Prather was invited. She notified me prior that she was still on another appointment. So, and also we hear Mr. Todd Fungy is jumping in the race. So he was invited, but he said maybe the next debate. So we'll see how that goes. But once again, thanks to the crew at HTV. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to the audience, the voters. And once again, kudos to all of y'all for sitting here and answering questions. We appreciate it. And no one knew the questions. Y'all did pretty doggone good for not knowing the questions. So thank you very much. And we'll now roll in some sponsors. Thank y'all and God bless y'all. Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology, and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bourke, know your rights. South Louisiana Bank, it's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Alford and Associates, for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality.